Now, I went to Paris recently and I brought back this model of the world's most visited paid tourist attraction. Granted, most people probably have a model of the Eiffel Tower like this at home, either because they went to Paris themselves and bought it as a souvenir, or as a cheap present they received from a friend or family member after they came back from France. But let that sink in for a moment. The Eiffel Tower is such a uniquely recognizable icon that every year the number of people who pay the entrance fee exceeds the combined number of people living in Norway and Estonia. The Iron Lady has seen more than 250 million visitors since it was completed in 1889, and today an average of 25,000 people go to the top every single day. As a quick side note, I myself did not actually ascend to the top, thanks to the long queues, but I did take some photos from below, which you should see now if I didn't mess up the editing. When the tower was completed, it was the tallest man-made structure in the world, standing at 300 meters, and surpassing the previous title holder, the Washington Monument, by roughly 121 meters. It stayed the world's tallest building until 41 years later in 1930, when the Chrysler Building in New York just barely exceeded the Eiffel Tower's height at almost 319 meters and took back the title of the world's tallest building to the US. As a matter of fact, the Eiffel Tower today is actually taller than the Chrysler Building by 5.2 meters, as the antenna that was added in 1957 increased the tower's total height to 324 meters. The Eiffel Tower has had a rocky history. It is quite commonly known that initially the tower, which was meant to be constructed only as a temporary structure for the 1889 Exposition Universelle, and I am probably butchering that, faced a lot of opposition even before it was built. But quite clearly it was built out of a total of 18,038 pieces that are held together by 2.5 million rivets. And in many ways, it is good that it was constructed. For instance, in 1910, Father Theodor Wolff accidentally discovered what is now known as cosmic rays by conducting experiments at the Eiffel Tower. A very special quirk of the tower's history is the fact that it was sold twice by an Austro-Hungarian man by the name of Victor Lustig. This happened in 1925, when the idea of the tower being sold as scrap metal was not as unthinkable as it would be today. After all, the tower had only been meant as a temporary measure, and its upkeep was very expensive for the city. Lustig gathered together a group of scrap metal dealers while posing as a French government official wanting to discreetly sell the tower in order to prevent public outcry. The first time he succeeded, and the buyer was too embarrassed as to admit to authorities what had happened, so Lustig got away with it. The second time, one of the scrap metal dealers informed the police. However, Lustig was able to avoid arrest. Germany occupied Paris in 1940, but not before the French had cut the lift cables of the Eiffel Tower. Though the tower stayed closed to the public for the duration of the occupation, German soldiers had to climb the tower following the victory to hoist the swastika flag. The flag was so big, though, that it flew away a few hours later and had to be replaced by a smaller one. The lifts, by the way, were only repaired in 1946. In 1967, there were secret plans to temporarily relocate the tower to Montreal for the Expo of '67. However, this was vetoed by the company running the tower out of fear that the French government would not allow for the tower to be reconstructed in the same place that it originally was standing. On the 31st of March 1984, a man by the name of Robert Moriarty flew his Beechcraft Bonanza under the tower, just for fun, as he said, becoming the third person in history to have done so. Today, the Eiffel Tower remains probably the world's most recognizable landmark. To keep it that way, the maintenance of the tower requires the application of 60 tons of paint each year just to prevent the tower from rusting. Because of its recognizability, replicas have showed up all over the world. To my knowledge, two full-size towers that look suspiciously like the Parisian counterpart are currently in existence. The Dragon Tower in Harbin, China, and the Tokyo Tower, which can be found, as the name suggests, in Tokyo, Japan. Also in Japan is the Nagoya Tower, which at 180 meters height has roughly a 1:2 scale to the Eiffel Tower. Probably the most famous copy of the most famous monument, though, is the 165-meter tall Las Vegas Eiffel Tower, which is part of the fittingly named Paris-Las Vegas Hotel and Casino. In Klagenfurt, Austria, you can find a copy of the Eiffel Tower as well. At an impressive height of 12 meters, it is one of the main attractions of the miniature park Minimundus. Of course, there's always smaller Eiffel Tower replicas, such as the one that I have right here. But I think a good place to stop is the 3 meter and 24 centimeter tall, so exactly 1/100th of the original's height, Eiffel Tower that you can find in the park of the Nikitins Gymnasium in Russia. That concludes my rambling on about the monument that, if it were a country and its visitors were its citizens, would be in the top 5 most populous countries of the world, somewhere comparable to Indonesia. Thank you for watching, and keep procrastinating.